homies, what is cracking out there at your house? Hope you're chilling, having a good time, man. Don't forget that fantasy football is fun as a motherfucker, and that's why we're here, having some fun. So don't get stressed, man. We're too blessed to be stressed. Go ahead and hit that like button because you're a cool dude and you don't need to see the rest of the video, man, to like it, do you? Alright, so let's get started on some good stuff. We've got some people that you need to look out for and pick up. Got some people you need to trade for. Got some people you need to trade away. And you can see some of them names, boy. I can't wait to get to them. Alright, so getting started off here, we're going to go with some quarterbacks that could be available on your waiver wire. Now, I know Trubisky's not available on your waiver wire, and if he is, you're probably in a soft league. But I'm never going to stop talking about Trubisky because he's just a really good player. And, you know, he deserves mention, man. He's a guy that was going never in the draft. You probably could have picked him up off waivers. 99% of the people did, so that was a great call. Now, Fitz, getting on down to real business. Fitz is the man, homie. You need to get Fitz if you don't have a top 5 quarterback. And even if you do, you might want to grab Fitz anyways. Great trade piece. We're getting into the end of the year now, so your whole team doesn't really matter anymore. Your best players are starting to matter more. You want backups to your players, so if you get an injury, you're not screwed. Now, if you get an injury in the early part of the year, it's easy to find waiver wire gold throughout the year and make up for that. But at the end of the year, when it's playoff time, it's going to be real hard to find yourself a good playoff quarterback. So you might want to grab a backup heading into the playoffs just in case something happens to your normal quarterback stud. And like I said, if you've got a half-assed quarterback, go ahead and get Fitzpatrick because he's Fitch magic. All right. Talk about some tight ends a little bit now. I like Doyle. I don't love Doyle, but that offense in Indianapolis, they throw the ball, so they look for their tight ends. Doyle gets plenty of targets and catches. Yeah, Ebron hurts, but we're talking about stuff of guys available on your waiver wire right now, so you're not exactly going to get a top player on your waiver wire. Herndon and Goedert, you know, they're dart throws, but I just figured I'd throw them up there because if you're looking for a tight end, you only have a few options. So I don't really like either of these guys, but I can go with Doyle. I can go with Doyle, especially in PPR. All right, now moving on down to some real game winners here. Sutton. Now that's not news. Everybody in the world has Sutton rising up their board. And there's some good reason for that. For one, it's the guy's talent. He's kind of got that Randy Moss high point action. Of course, he's not Randy Moss, and he can't jump like Randy Moss, but that same move, bow, he jumps up and he grabs it out of the air. That's a big skill. That's an end zone skill. That's a deep play skill. So with Demaryius Thomas out of there, Demaryius Thomas wasn't doing that great anyway, but he was doing okay. You know, he was getting a few targets. Sutton's getting a few targets. Well, guess what? Now Sutton's going to get all the targets he was getting, plus Demaryius Thomas's. And here's the real juice to Sutton, that schedule. That schedule, man, it is juicy. When I started looking at that schedule, I was like, wow. He's facing the 26th ranked pass defense against wide receivers, then the 28th and the 30th and the 25th. And it is a cakewalk for Sutton. So I suggest pick him up if he's available still. You definitely want to grab him. He could be a league winner. You know what I mean? I'm not saying for sure he will be, but he's definitely got the necessary ingredients. So right now, wide receivers aren't really as valuable as running backs, but a good one is really important. So now moving on down to DeVante Parker, which I think is a great pickup, and he'd be my #1 waiver wire pickup right now, or free agent pickup, if Demaryius Thomas wasn't traded. Because with Demaryius Thomas there, Sutton just had upside that he was not going to realize or ever really get a chance to realize. He might have a couple big games, but you can't play him on your team. Now Demaryius Thomas is gone. Sutton is the #1 pickup by far. Especially with the rest of the season, you know, being factored in. Now let's pretend for a second Sutton's not available. Parker's on your waiver wire. He's worth a pickup right now because there's a few things I don't like about the Dolphins offense. I mean, and I don't really got to go into it. They don't throw the ball a lot. They don't even run. They don't play a lot of plays. You know, they drain the clock kind of. So there's not that much upside to players on the Dolphins. But with that standing still true, Stills is hurt, and they've got some issues there. So right now, DeVante Parker is getting fed. You saw that last game. I'm thinking that might not be a fluke. Now, if you pick him up and then this week he doesn't do anything, okay, well, then you drop him. It didn't cost you nothing but a waiver wire pickup. Okay, but if he blows up again, now you've got something. Okay, DeVante Parker is something. If he blows up again this week, that's 2 weeks in a row. Obviously, you could trade him for someone who has a wide receiver problem or is just looking to pick up DeVante Parker if he blows up again. But if he blows up again, you might want to hold on to him because he's had a lot of potential for years now, and this looks like it's his opportunity. Now, I'm not going crazy because he had just one good week, but if you pick him up now, because now nobody else is picking him up. And then if he does it again, he's already on your bench. And then if he does it again, next week he's going to be the #1 pick. So that's why you want to grab him now if you can afford to and if you need a wide receiver. All right, now let's go down to Chris Godwin and DeSean Jackson. This is purely based on the fact that, you know, Fitzmagic is now back. So he throws the ball. He's got rapport with both of those guys. Chris Godwin has a ton of end zone looks, more end zone looks than Mike Evans does all year. And DeSean Jackson, we know he can make your whole week in one touchdown bomb. So they're good pickups. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you got to bend over backwards to pick him up because I like DeVante Parker. I would definitely try to make room on him, on my team for him if I could. And of course Sutton. These guys are a little more speculative, kind of dart throws, but they can do it. It only takes one play for either one of those guys to make your week. All right, now let's get into some stashes and some other running backs. Jamaal Williams. Now, right now, he's being poo-pooed on, just like Doug Martin was over a week ago before I told you to pick him up. Just because people are poo-pooing on him, that doesn't mean he's not a pickup. That might just mean he's a good opportunity for you to buy on other people's lack of ability to tell when somebody's good or not. And so now everybody's saying, oh, Doug Martin looked pretty good last week. Ooh, yeah, because you have eyeballs. But before then, people were saying, I would do anything but draft or pick up Doug Martin. I would rather die than pick up. Then now this week they're saying, oh, he looked pretty good. That's the way it is out here in fantasy football. So you can't buy into all the hype and you can't buy into the lows and the highs and all that. So let's talk about Jamaal Williams just for a second. With Ty Montgomery out, that creates a small bit of uptick in touches for both Aaron Jones and Jamaal Williams. Now, this guy right here is a league-winning handcuff, meaning only if something happens to Aaron Jones, you're going to have yourself a league winner by default because there's no other running back there. And you're going to be on a high-powered offense. They're going to need to run the ball sometimes, even though they pass most of the time. Jamaal Williams, put him on your bench. He's probably available on waivers. If he's not, I'm not saying you should trade for him because there's no value in him right now. But should something happen to Aaron Jones, Jamaal Williams is going to skyrocket in value. Okay, especially since Ty Montgomery isn't there. There's really nowhere else for them to go with the ball realistically, and that's what we like. We like no other options. We want to know for sure when we put our guy in there that he's going to get the looks. And so with Aaron Rodgers there, I like Jamaal Williams just as a speculative ad in case something happens to Aaron Jones and no Ty Montgomery. That's a nice piece. Now, Doug Martin is still nice. So, he's probably picked up. He's probably not there, but I just want to talk about it again. He would have had an even better week last week had he not fumbled the ball on the last possession when they were driving and cost his team the win. Doesn't mean he was going to get a touchdown, but they had the ball and they were giving it to him, and then he fumbled. So he could have had a better week last week. And so I still like Doug Martin. His schedule looks great. So if there's something still there, we're still kind of waiting for him to do something. He looked good, but he didn't really do anything. So, but if he starts doing something, they start giving him the ball more, then you know what? His schedule is nice too, and that's what we want. We want a lot of greens. When we look at the side and we see our opponent, not the person we're playing, but the team, the opponent of the player, in green, meaning the high greens, like 20s and 30s, then we like that. So we want as many greens as possible. These two players right here have a ton of green coming up in their schedule, so their schedules look cake, and all they need is the perfect storm. Jamaal Williams, we need Aaron Jones to get hurt. Unfortunately, we're not saying we want him to get hurt, but for these to come true, this is what would need to happen. And then Doug Martin just needs to get more balls, and then we'll see what he can do. So he doesn't really need an injury, which is why he was probably picked up last week. I told you to get him last week. Hopefully you did, and if you didn't, it's all right too. He's not that big of a deal. It's just Doug Martin. Now, I'll call your attention to Dante Foreman. He's going to be coming back, and so maybe he's got something. We still don't know. He had, I think it was an ACL injury, and sometimes people don't come back all the way, especially running backs could lose a little bit of their oomph. And sometimes it takes them a long time to get back in the gym and get their full strength back and all that. So, but being on that offense with the Texans, he's got some opportunity. The reason why I'm not rushing out to get him is there's still Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue there, so I really don't know the kind of upside he's got or what's going to happen there. That his floor is nothing. You could get nothing for him. So he's not necessarily great, but I want to call your attention to him. Maybe you're in a deep league, maybe 14, 16, 18 teams. You just pick him up now while he's still available and sit on him for a week. Now, Elijah McGuire looks like he could be the starting running back for the Jets. So we're going to pick him up speculatively and see what happens. He's coming off IR, but they like him there, which is a big deal. I mean, obviously teams like the players they have, or they wouldn't have him on their team, but they really like this guy. He also is used in the passing game, so they don't take him off the field just to bring in anyone else. So he's got potential. The only real downside is the Jets don't really have a very good offense, but if Crowell is there and something happens to him, now you've got yourself a running back. So obviously we're reaching a little bit here, okay? This is what we got to do when we get late in the season. There's not a lot of obvious pickups, but there's some ones that are not so obvious where you might need a thing or two to happen, but then you do have something. So that's what we're looking for here. Getting on down to some boogie towns here. Spencer Ware. I like Spencer Ware as a handcuff. He's probably one of the top handcuffs you could possibly have right now that's available on your waiver wire. And so pick him up. Same thing with Jamaal Williams. You're just picking him up. If something happens to the star running back, he's the obvious beneficiary. So just have him on your team, because if you look up in the rankings, he's going to be in the top 10 if something happens to the starter. So Spencer Ware is a nice pickup, and a lot of times our bench areas are full of players. That's why you want to combo pack players. That's why you want to overpay. It's okay to overpay. I already overpaid today for a huge trade. I'll tell you about it later, but the bottom line is, not only did I get the players I wanted, I freed up bench spots, and I'm rich. You know what I'm saying? I got so many great players on my team that I can afford to start bundling some of these guys, overpaying for the talent I really want. And at the end of the day, man, the only players that matter are the ones in our starting position. Our bench doesn't really matter. It only matters when you're accumulating assets so that you can bundle and trade for the top starters in your league. So you got to have a little patience and foresight. But let's say something happens to Kareem Hunt. Well, now you've got Spencer Ware. Not only is he starting running back for you, for the Chiefs, you got the starting running back for the Chiefs, but you could flip him to anyone in your league for a player you really want for your home stretch. You can combine him with another player that you have who's really good, and then combine them, two good players for one great player. Yeah, you overpay, and but guess what? You win the championship, man. You're in the game, all right? So, and then Marlon Brown, listen, I'm going to talk here about Gurley for a second. You can get a king's ransom for Gurley right now. Now, if you've been looking ahead, you probably noticed that the Rams are 8-0, and teams that go undefeated tend to rest in the last week or two, depending on how many losses they have. If they have only 1 or 2 losses, if they're 2 or 3 wins away from their division opponents or anyone else in their conference, they're going to rest. Last year, the Rams rested Gurley in the final game, and they didn't have this hot of a start. If they keep on going unbeaten, let's just call it that, then they're going to sit Gurley in the last week, maybe even the last 2 weeks, man. And that's going to crush your team. And if you've been riding Gurley this whole time, this train is probably going to stop right when you need it the most. So right now, I know it hurts, and man, you might not want to do it, but you can get a king's ransom right now. Go pick out a couple of great players on contending teams and get yourself some players who are not going to be sat in the final week or two. And so that's just a big downfall of having Gurley on the best player on a great team, is that, sometimes they sit in the final weeks. And that used to happen to Tom Brady, and Gronk and all that. So when they were dominating, you know what I mean, they sat in the final week, and that'll crush your fantasy chances for the championship, which you've been working on the whole year. So unfortunately, you got to get rid of them, I think. But fortunately, you can get a king's ransom for him right now. Now, some players are savvy, and they're not going to trade him to you. They're not going to trade a whole lot for him. But a lot of other players are going to go, what, Gurley? Sure, you dummy. And they're going to accept that trade. Anything you want, you probably get for Gurley from a lot of players. So explore that at least. I'm not saying fire sale. Don't get me crazy. Don't get started on crazy talk. All right? But definitely pursue that trade. Find out what the best. You've got a couple weeks to do it, but not that long, man, because they're going to start noticing that, and other people are going to make videos, and it's going to come out. Once Matthew Berry says it, it's late news by the time he says it. And once he says it, everybody hears it, and it's not going to happen anymore. You can forget trading Gurley once Matthew Berry tells everybody out there that he's probably going to be sat in the last week, or the last 2 weeks, actually, now that they're undefeated. If they continue that, we're talking 2 weeks. He's not going to be there for you. All right. Let's go to my winners. John Brown. He's a wide receiver that's a wide receiver 1 right now. He's a top 10 wide receiver for production. Joe Flacco is great at the deep ball. and he's the deep target. They got a great defense, so they're giving the ball back a lot, and they're going to have lots of possessions. They don't connect all the time, but he gets a ton of deep targets, and when he does connect, he produces quite a bit. And you probably don't have to give up on arm and a leg to get John Brown. You could probably do it in combination trade and get another player or two and just pretend like John Brown is a throw-in, even though he might be the main goal of your target in that trade. So I love John Brown right now. I mean, he's not A.J. Green or Hopkins or anything like that, but he's a very sneaky top 10 pick, and if he doesn't quite produce for you, he's probably going to be a top 20 pick at the worst. So I love his floor. His ceiling is high. Target John Brown. In addition, his schedule is gravy. That's what you're going to find out a lot about these guys. The schedule is gravy, and I'm high on having a great schedule at the end of the year. So, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas is gone. He's going to get some more looks. Now, it's going to change the dynamics a little bit. He won't be put in the slot quite as much, and he'll have a lot of the top defenders on him, but he was already dealing with a lot of that. And so with Demaryius Thomas gone, even if Sutton starts catching balls, it's just going to take pressure off Emmanuel Sanders. He's been producing so well, and the schedule is delicious. I mean delicious. So you got to give Emmanuel Sanders a try. Go look at the team that has him. See if you can work a trade out for Sanders. Now, let's talk about Nick Chubb. He hasn't broken out yet, so you can still buy him cheap comparatively. Okay, he's not going to go for a bag of peanuts, but he's going to be pretty cheap compared to where he's going to be at once he breaks a big touchdown and adds that to all his other runs. And so you want to target him. The schedule is great. They're going to lean on him a little bit more now. They got a defensive coach, which means they're probably going to lean on the run even more, take some pressure off of their rookie quarterback, and see what happens. They really need Chubb to start coming through for them, so I expect him to feature so they can open up some of those passing lanes. And Cam Newton. Let me bust out some research that I did on old boy Cam. All right. Right now, I want you to know that Norv Turner is the coach there. And Norv Turner is the same coach that they had in San Diego when the Chargers were killing it with LaDainian Tomlinson. And so what they're doing is they're doing the run-pass option a lot with Cam Newton. So with Cam Newton, you've always got the goal line rushes, and the red zone efficiency for Cam Newton is off the charts right now. He's loaded at the skill positions. Obviously, he's got Christian McCaffrey he can always throw it to. So a lot of times when they're trying to get Christian McCaffrey the ball, they'll actually throw it to him, which means Cam Newton gets credit for that touchdown, even though it was basically a run play, but he did throw it. And the playoff schedule is money for Cam Newton. It is just straight money. The whole offense revolves around Cam Newton. He does lack explosive passing plays, so the deep ball, a lot of those deep explosive passing plays you don't really get with him, but he's getting better every game. He's kind of on a streak right now, and I like that. Listen, Greg Olsen, Devin Funchess, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, he's got a ton of weapons, and he runs the ball. So 28th against the pass, 28 points against the number one pass defense last week. The Ravens, they scored 28 points on the Ravens, which is pretty good. He's got 7 different wide receivers last week that caught passes, so he's not locking in on any one person. You want to get yourself some Cam Newton. Check this out. He scored 21 points in the fourth quarter last week before the Ravens against the Eagles. Then last week he had a 99-yard drive against the Ravens to seal that game. And his coming up schedule, listen to this: Atlanta, New Orleans Saints, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tampa Bay Bucks. Like, he has a cakewalk the rest as far as stopping the pass. His passer rating 97.4, completion percentage 66%. And Norv Turner, man, okay, he's going to make this kid a star. He's already a star, but it was a little overkill there, man. But I'm just telling you, this guy's looking nice. I would target him, and I just did. So get yourself some Cam Newton. Jared Cook's playoff schedule looks amazing. Amari Cooper is gone. I mentioned him in my last video, but they're still targets. They didn't change. They're still targets. Njoku's a great buy low. I mean, you can only buy him so low because one bad game doesn't destroy a person's value, but you can't have a worse game than he had last week. He had not even a single target last week. The reason why, if you watch that game, is he was getting double teamed on every single play. The defense decided they're going to take Njoku away and see if Mayfield could beat him, and he couldn't. So they double teamed Njoku every play. He's still a great play, gets a lot of targets on most weeks. I don't know if last week I think last week is an aberration. And the schedule's gravy. He's a freakish athlete. Mayfield's going to throw him some balls. So last week was an aberration in my opinion. You should definitely target him. Don't give up the whole world for him, but target him. Maybe he's on a team that already has another tight end and is willing to cut loose with Njoku. Or maybe you could swap tight ends and throw in another player and pick him up. Let's see what else we got. Ekeler. Now, I talked about Ekeler last week and the week before and the week before and the week before, and back when I was talking about Phillip Lindsay when no one else was talking about Phillip Lindsay, and even before Phillip Lindsay blew up, I told you guys to pick up Phillip Lindsay, and even after he blew up, then a bunch of homies were saying they didn't buy into it yet, and I was already telling you to buy into it. Why am I telling you that? Because I want to, dog. I don't think you remember. Let's get into, let's finish Ekeler. The schedule's great. Melvin Gordon has a hamstring issue, soft tissue injury. We know how those are tricky. Just hold on to Ekeler or trade for him right now and get him pretty cheap, probably. Not for peanuts, but I mean he's not a starting running back. But if something happens to Melvin Gordon, not only do you have the #1 running back on a team that's featuring the running back, but the schedule again is a cakewalk, and you're going to have yourself a nice stud with Ekeler. And if nothing happens, you don't really have a whole lot, okay? And then Christian McCaffrey. Now I went deep on Christian McCaffrey. He's the leading wide receiver on the team. So imagine having a starting running back. This guy gets 95% of the snap touches. That's more than Zeke, David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Saquon Barkley. He's the #1 running back in the league with the most snap percentages, 95%, and he's leading the team in catches and targets. So he's the starting running back, and he's the wide receiver. He got a lucky catch last week, so his numbers weren't as bad as they should have been. He'd have been in a little nicer buy if he hadn't had a lucky catch. But 19% of the targets, he's getting the target share. He gets 19% of it. That's quite a bit. And then 25% of the red zone targets. So even though he hasn't got a lot of touchdowns, he's getting their end zone looks. So I like him there. I kind of compare him to Cohen, Tariq Cohen, and Kamara. But he doesn't have a vulture. See, Cohen has the vulture, and that's Jordan Howard. And Kamara has the vulture, and that's Mark Ingram. But Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a vulture. He's getting all those snaps, and the vulture really is Cam Newton. So I guess he does have kind of a vulture there at the end zone. They're using Cam quite a bit, but he still gets the looks. Here's some more information about the guy. Okay, the playoff schedule obviously is awesome. I wouldn't put him up here if his playoff schedule wasn't awesome. Norv Turner, the same coach who ran LT. When LT was the top fantasy back, he was the top fantasy back every single year, and it wasn't even close. If you had LaDainian Tomlinson, you won your league. That's how badass LaDainian Tomlinson was. Now you have that same coach, and so I just like that a lot. He's got 1,600 yards, or he's on pace for 1,600 yards, 300 plus touches, and 100 plus receptions. I mean, we're talking about a wide receiver 1 who's also a running back. So even if his running back touches are maybe 10 to 15 a week, and it's not in that 18 to 25 range, he's still getting a lot of wide receiver looks and targets, and so he's a major part of that offense. He cannot be game scripted off the field. So no matter what the score is, whether they're up by 20 or down by 30, Christian McCaffrey's in the game. So he can't be game scripted out, and I love that. You can put him in, lock him in. His floor is high. His ceiling is even higher. He hasn't even touched his ceiling yet, and that's the most beautiful thing about Christian McCaffrey. His ceiling, he could absolutely explode for a couple touchdowns running, a couple touchdowns passing, and just explode. And it's possible. And if he doesn't, guess what? He's still going to get you, double digits no matter what. So that's my story on CMC, my homie. So give me a like down there because there was some serious research done on that bad boy. And now let's get into some players that you need to sell. And after week 1, I sold Gronk. I had Gronk on one of my teams, big money league that I'm in, and I sold him just because I didn't like what I saw. What I saw was only 2 real catches, and one of them wasn't even a real catch. They only hurried up and ran another play before it was reviewed, and so it counted. But in reality, that play shouldn't have counted. So I was like, wow, I don't like what I'm seeing for Gronk. I need to sell him while he still had a double digit. And I didn't make a video because I felt irresponsible while telling you guys to sell Gronk, but it was just a hunch, and I was right. I should have made a video and told y'all to do it. But if you haven't figured it out by now, you need to sell Gronk. Last week, I just noticed he wasn't looking the same. He looks slow. I think he's done. Now, does that mean he's like done? No, he's not done. It just means that he's lost his elite athleticism. So he's just another guy now. He's a great, still got big hands, still big guy, still part of the offense. So if you have him, you are starting him. But trade him. Trade him. The longer it goes, the worse it's going to be for the trade. Now, there's definitely people in your league who believe in Gronk right now. He's got a huge name, and you can pull yourself a nice running back. You can pull their tight end plus a running back and wide receiver and just swap tight ends and pick up another player. Or you could give someone, if you have 2 tight ends, you should pick up another one. I mean, if you have one, pick up another one and have 2, and then trade Gronk away as soon as you pick up your other tight end. Because he's got a big name, but he's not doing anything in the field. And I think it's because his athleticism is gone. I think he just lost a step. And that would explain why he said he's never going to play for another team. Because he's already proven himself. He's a legend out there in New England. If he leaves now that his health is gone, I mean, now that his athleticism is gone, goes somewhere else, it's going to ruin his reputation and ruin his legacy. So that's it for Gronk, man. Sell right now. I can't tell you to sell high because the time to sell high was after week 1 or 2 or 3 when everyone's telling you to buy Gronk. Some people are still saying buy low on Gronk. I'm like, are you crazy? There is no buy low. He is low. You know what I mean? Sure, he could bite me. He could come back any week. He could score 2 or even 3 touchdowns. But that old crazy athleticism where he jumps over 3 people and secures the catch, it gets hit and falls down, and that's over, man. And that's my story. I think that's what's happened, and I could be wrong, but that's what I see. So get out of Gronk. Also, I moved up to. Let me talk about Matt Ryan real quick. Well, let's stick with New England. Josh Gordon, he's got a hitch in his giddy up. Okay, I think he's still hurt by his hamstring. He's either hurt by his hamstring or he's just out of shape. He can't run. The explosion is gone, and so it might be back. I'm not saying he's done like I'm saying Gronk is done. I'm saying Gronk's actually totally done. With Gordon, I'm just saying he's injured and he's slow. He can't break away. And when you watch him run, he has a little hitch in his giddy up, meaning he's still got a hurt leg. So people don't notice that, and nobody's really noticing. Nobody's talking about it. That's good news for you. You're listening to my channel. You've heard it. Now you can trade him, and somebody who believes in Josh Gordon is going to pick him up from you. He's got a great name, just like Gronk. Get out from under Gronk. Get out from under Gordon. Okay, that's my opinion. Now going up to Matt Ryan, if you look at last year, his box scores, he had a really bad year. And a lot of things have went right for him this year. He's still got a bad defense and no running game, which means he's going to throw the ball a lot. But he's got to score touchdowns and he's got to get yards, and his schedule is not ideal. You can still win with Matt Ryan, and so I'm not saying dump him like I'm saying dump Gronk and Gordon. Don't like dump them for cheap, but get out of there. Well, with Matt Ryan, I'm saying look to replace him with Cam Newton if you can. Some people will trade you Cam Newton straight up for Matt Ryan. Now, not this week, they probably won't, because Cam Newton's playing I think they're playing the Bucks, which is the 32nd team, the 32nd worst team, the entire worst team against quarterback numbers in fantasy. So it'd be hard to trade for him, but a lot of players, they'll trade you for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's actually having a better season so far in fantasy. But the floor for Matt Ryan is a lot lower than the floor is for Cam. And like I said, the schedule, man, this is highly schedule based. I'm not just finding whoever has the best schedule. I'm also finding great players. So it's not like I'm just focused on the schedule, but I'm telling you that schedule adds that extra juice to your player that you're really going to need, so that when you play him, you can feel good. You've got the top quarterback playing the worst defense. That's the only way. That's the best you can do, man. That's all you could do. All right, now Gurley, I talked about him already. You know how it is. He's the best player in the game, and there's no hate on Gurley. It's just a matter of fact that if you make it to your championship, he's probably not going to be there for you. And so you got to look ahead. And right now, it's still early enough to where a lot of people aren't looking into the championship weeks, and they'll still buy in on Gurley. But you got to get a lot for him. You know what I mean? Maybe go get a Melvin Gordon or somebody like that. I don't know. Zeke is a great buy low, but you got to get more than that. And people will give you more than that too, because you're just trading away Gurley. So set yourself up for a championship. Now, if you're really desperate, say you're 4-4. That's not real desperate, but it's definitely not in a sit and pretty situation. You know, maybe you want to ride Gurley out and make it to your championship, but then you're going to be screwed in your championship game if you make it. All right, now LeSean McCoy. Yeah, there's really not much to say, man. He's on a really bad team, and as the season goes along, their season's already lost. I don't see them giving McCoy a whole lot of touches. He's old. They're probably going to save him for next year. They think he's a part of their future. That's the reason why they didn't trade him. They like his locker room presence, his veteran presence, and they plan on having him back next year. So if they're thinking long term, they're probably going to give him less touches and shut him down a little bit, see what they have with their backups. He hasn't done anything anyway, so you're not losing anything. Someone may give you something for him. So, I just threw him in there a little bit. He's not a great trade piece, but at the end of the day, I just don't believe in him. But he could bite me in the butt. So, you know what I mean? They might still feature him and try to make some wins, but I think they're just probably going to tank the rest of the year and see if they can get a high draft pick. Now, I mentioned Kerryon Johnson in my last video, and now a lot of other, I watch a lot of videos. A lot of other videos are recommending to trade him. And so, we're ahead of the game here, man. We're ahead of the game, but we're still there. So still trade him. His value is still high. And get out of Kerryon Johnson, man. Theo Riddick is coming back, and he's going to take his old role back. Theo Riddick is a great pass-catching running back. No matter how good Kerryon Johnson is, he's not taking Theo Riddick's job. So he's not taking LeGarrette Blount's job either, because he's not LeGarrette Blount. He's not a pile mover like LeGarrette Blount. So he's not going to get the end zone touches. He's also not going to get the majority of the passing work. So a three-way timeshare. It's not a piece you want to be getting. You don't want anything to do with that. So Kerryon Johnson's out, and of course Carlos Hyde. So some people think he has value. I don't see it. I mean, I'm sure he could have a couple spot starts, and if something happens to Fournette, but look, nothing's going to happen to Fournette. He's had so many weeks. They rushed him back a week too early probably, and he re-injured it. So now he's been out for weeks and weeks and weeks. When he comes back the second time, I don't think they're going to make the same mistake. When he comes back this time, he's going to be healthy. This is his bye week. He's chilling. He's been chilling for a few weeks. That hammy is getting nice. And when he comes back, it's his job. And what's Carlos Hyde going to do? Nothing. He's going to sit there and baby some water on the sidelines, okay? Now, if something does happen to Fournette, let's say he never comes back, what do you really have? You have a plotter. Carlos Hyde is older now. He's going to only get first and second down. They're going to love bringing in Yeldon. He's their pass-catching back, so you really don't have any upside, even if he does get the job. So people think that he's good. Throw him in a package. Package up Hyde with somebody else and get you another player, and give up some perceived value, which isn't the real value. And that's it, my homies. Scared money doesn't make money, so that's why we take chances. Trading is fun. So trade, even if you screw up and get trade raped. I mean, don't do that, but just, man, have some fun. This is what it's all about. The formula, watch the videos, draft great assets, pick up great players with prospective asset, prospective upside, flip them when they reach their upside into greater players, have a dominant team in the playoffs, and then that's the formula, man. Make the money. That's it. Today is Thursday. Got a game coming up here in a little bit. I'm going to see if I can get this video out by tonight, because you still got to upload it and do all that jazz. But that's it, doggy. So may the W's be in your favor, and may you kick some hightail booty, and we are out. Man, if you can get yourself some Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey, got that nice stack going, that's what I'm talking about. All right. Spencer Ware, I like that pickup. Jamaal Williams, man, those guys are cheap. So cheap. So cheap, man. All right. And I'm out. Peace.